Hello and welcome to the Could This Happen in Your Program podcast, where we find collaborative solutions to protecting New Yorkers and care. In honor of Developmental Disabilities Awareness Month, we explore how self-advocacy and family support help ensure that people with developmental disabilities live with dignity, choice, and security. We'll begin today's episode with Dr. Lucina Clarke, Executive Director and co-founder of My Time, Inc. Dr. Clarke shares her mission to support the pillars of the disability community who are all too often forgotten, the parents and the caregivers. Dr. Clarke explains why caregiver wellness and education are so important to a person with disabilities, illustrating how an informed parent can transform into a powerful, lifelong advocate. Then we welcome Crystal Collins, Ombudsman Supervisor for the Justice Center. We discuss the role of oversight and person-centered care, how to navigate the service system, and how to ensure that every person remains safe and their rights are upheld. This episode offers a comprehensive look at what it takes to create a truly person-centered safety net. Okay, well, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today. Today, again, we're here with Dr. Lucina Clarke, Executive Director and co-founder of My Time, Inc. Thank you so much, Lucina.
Oh, thank you so much for being here. I'm so elated.
Oh, I'm glad. So can you just start? I mean, that's a great intro. Can we start by introducing yourself and giving a little bit of history on My Time?
Oh my gosh, My Time Inc. was founded in 2007. In March of this year, it'll be 19 years.
Wow.
Next year will be 20 years. So we are so much excited about where we began and where we are right now. You know, My Time Inc. founded, like my husband and I, really, Wayne, thought about, what can we create a special place for parents? Been in this field for so many years, an educator, behavior analysis, is always about the children. Mm-hmm. What services are being provided to the children? And working in the homes of these amazing parents, I'm like, what support is for the parent? The parent is the one always out there advocating, making sure that children receive the services and will do it no matter what. And I told my husband, I remember it was Purim Day because I work within the Jewish community a lot. And I was home and I'm sitting at home and like, we need to do something. I'm looking at the parents, I'm seeing the struggles, I'm seeing the lack of support sometimes within the family structure, because sometimes they tend to be like a blame game, like it's your fault, our son or child is like this. And it got to be so much for some of the families. Even in the homes, people who are going through so many emotional imbalances within the relationship. I said, we need to create something for the parents, a special place where they can come in as a mission to be supported, to be educated, to be empowered, to be uplifted, and also enlightening the community with all that. So the families can create an environment where the children deserve to live a quality of life in their community. So that was the whole thing. I started working in the home of this amazing mom. This was such an advocate, a fighter for services for her amazing young son. And then she passed away. She got very ill. With just the running about, it takes a toll on families when they are going through this process sometimes. And one day I got to the home to see my beautiful young boy. And mom wasn't looking well. I'm like, something isn't right. And she was insisting that I leave to go home. I'm like, I can stay with you, for a little bit and let's just talk. She's like, no, I want you to go. As soon as I got home, I got a phone call. She passed away. It was so heart-wrenching. I told my husband, no, we got to create something. We have to create a space where parents doesn't feel all alone. Most of the time, the parents that I deal with, you feel alone because you feel this is the only bubble you're in and no one is understanding. But there are people who are empathetic and can understand if you're willing to open. And by doing that, I told my husband, we need to create a special place for parents where they can come and just have fun. My first thing was about, I'm going to educate you. I'm going to provide you with strategies so you can decrease the behaviors, because most of our children is because of the behaviors. Our parents get frustrated, don't have the support. And then I said, no, I need to create something that is fun as well.
Yeah.
So while creating the educational piece, we created a recreational piece where parents can come together, just have fun. I remember I sat in the basement, our basement, and we had parents coming in once a month, and I love to cook. So I always made a meal, and we just kept talking and laughing because I always feel,
Can I come?
yeah, when you break bread with people
Yeah.
and you have a good meal, whether it's a home cooked meal, it's like I feel free. I can trust the environment. And we started doing that. And some parents were going back to school, getting their degrees, just becoming a better person, even being a better self-care in taking care of who they are. And that's how it began. And someone said, well, Lucina, you should open another. I'm like, I really don't want to do that because the paperwork back then was this amount. But I eventually did, and I'm glad I did. And that way it opened a space. I started from a basement. I went to different buildings, a flower shop and all, until recently, 3 years ago, we got the most amazing space with a terrace that you overlook Manhattan and a beautiful building that you walk into. So it is a very safe space for our families to know that you're not alone.
And I'd imagine when, families, parents specifically have that sense of community, they then become more in tune and supportive caregivers as well.
Yes.
And so can we talk a little bit about, for a parent that's just received a diagnosis, that can be a very heavy, confusing time.
Yes.
What is the first step in becoming an effective advocate for their child? And how do you help them through this?
We were just having that conversation.
Right.
When a parent gets a diagnosis, it's like a blow. Because you go through this, I always say 10 months of pregnancy, and you're going through this whole process, and you're talking to the baby, and you're having all these wonderful conversations, and then you get this diagnosis. It's like it hits you like a brick. Oh my God. First thing you said, what did I do wrong? Whether you have faith or you believe, what did he do wrong?
Right.
In some aspect. And I tell parents, first of all, you got to just acknowledge it. Acknowledge and give yourself the permission to say it's gonna be okay. And for some, it takes a long, long time, but I think when they give themselves that permission to be open, it allows them to feel, you know what, I can do this. And again, by finding the right support system of people around you who can really empathize with you. It's not even the understanding the part, it's the empathy part of it. Because some people can still be cruel out there when a parent comes with a child with disability and it's like, oh, looking at the person up and down like, you don't look as though, or what does it look like? It shouldn't have what it looks like. It's what I'm going through. When a parent comes to them like, listen, I am here to listen. And also true body language and communication is so important because I can tell you I'm fully listening, but I'm like gazing. I'm like, I don't want to hear your story. But I think when they come with that diagnosis and they get it, is to know they have someone they can trust. And if you have to breathe, and I always tell parents, I have a box of tissue always on my table. So we're going to have some crying moments, and then we're going to wipe our tears, and we're going to start and buckle up and do what we need to do. But first, acknowledge, give yourself permission to hear the news, because we block it off sometimes. Because it's like, why did I deserve this? Do I really deserve this? I remember a parent said to me, Lucina, when I was having my beautiful baby, I didn't ask for that.
Yeah.
But then I have another parent, she has a different spin. She said, I think when I was giving birth to my son, he looked around and he said, I'll choose you as my mom.
Oh.
So, you hear different stories because some people, they'll say, okay, you have a gift. Now, oh, that's not a good gift to have because it's taking a lot from me. But when they come in, I said, listen, you have permission to deny it also. But then you got to wake up. Because we're going to start the work of advocacy. So the work of advocacy begins when you start observing your child. What are you noticing? Because I tell parents, as women, we have that intuition. Oh my gosh, we know it. I always come back to the story of I always do a disclaimer, I don't have a child with disability. I felt my third child that I'd lost would have been because I was having that weird feeling inside of me, all this intuition. I'm like, what is going on? And then I started to realize I was being called for a purpose that I didn't even plan for. And then when I received and I accepted this purpose, it became my destiny to be there, because there are a lot of families out there who are afraid to speak. They don't have the voice. They feel if I say something, I'm ostracized or I'm criticized, I'm judged.
Right.
And that is what my timing is about. It's about you can come to a safe space. I don't care how you feel at that moment. You're entitled to that feeling. But we got to move on and get the right steps. Observing your child and knowing also too, this child is your child. Who can give it the most? Who can give him or her the most love ever? And it's through that love, it gives you that strong advocacy because you've got to learn what you have to do.
And I think that's a great segue to my next question about, so your educational series, Know Your Rights. Can you speak a little bit about that and how that prepares for that advocacy role that a parent would play?
Yeah, knowing your rights, first of all, when you start having diagnosis, you have evaluations. What are evaluations? The psychological evaluation, the psychosocial evaluations. These social evaluations, when you might be evaluated by a psychologist or by a social worker, you have to know what those terminologies mean.
Right.
You can't just go sit and say, well, my child is. So through your observation of what you have written down, for me, I work a lot within the autism spectrum field. Okay, my child is not interacting. My child is blocking off noises. My child is doing certain things. You start writing down this information. You start to become a detective. I said, FBI agent, start recording, have a little booklet, things that your child do, the moments that your child do different things. And you may even give your child a request. You may call the child is not hearing what you're saying. So all these things that come into understanding what evaluation is. Now, what goals are you going to have during this evaluation? What are you telling the psychologist or telling the person? Because sometimes some parents go in and they tell stories and they don't get the service because they're not being honest or truthful. 0 to 3 is a very important time of evaluation in a child's life or a family to structure where you want to go and what you see ahead. And I tell parents, don't only look at the negative, like, oh, my child is having tantrum. What are the things that they were doing that they love?
Right.
They might be scribbling on a piece of paper. That's art. They love music. Some of our kids are so amazing. They'll go on the piano and like, oh my gosh, at 3, my child is playing the piano. So it's important.
I met with someone from a provider agency not that long ago, and they mentioned that a service recipient in care, they helped find a job because he loved animals and he loved repetitive motions. And so they found him a job brushing horses because it was a repetitive motion. And he just thrived. And so that's a good, rather than turn it on the negative, turning it back on the positive. What can we do, or what can we find?
So that is part of it. And knowing your rights is making sure parents understand the terminologies. What's my next step? Who do I see? Do I see a neurologist, or do I see a typical psychologist, or about a licensed one? Because when you don't get a licensed psychologist or therapist to work, these reports are meaningless. So you have to understand what the reports are, because as your journey continue, we use a lot of acronyms in educational or OPWD, field. Like, what does IEP means for you? And knowing it's an individual educational plan. And as a baby, what is an IFSP? It's an individual family service plan. Understanding, knowing your rights of what to ask and being confident enough. So when we do educational workshops, we're giving you the language because the language is what gives you the services. So and how you present. Look, you can be angry and you can be mad. You can be mad as much as you want. But the thing is, you have to get your senses back and start focusing on what I can do as a parent.
And what about the community aspect of your work? What does it mean to parents to be able to connect with other parents that are experiencing similar situations?
So awesome. I know when I started doing this whole parent support, my husband always say, parent support is not a new phenomenon, just that my timing is bringing new perspectives in. When parents sit together in a non-judgmental arena with other parents, it's like, oh, your child did that? Yes, he did, or she did. And in our circle, my time, we have parents from ages from 0 to whatever age, I say cradle to college. And having that, you feel so good that I can pull you aside, build a new friendship, build accountability to one another, and said, I may not feel comfortable asking in the support group, but I know I can connect with you. And one of the things we do at my time, you got to have accountability partners as you're starting new. Being accountable with one another, because most of the times I tell individuals, when you have a child with special need or uniqueness, the friends that you may have had before, doesn't want to listen to those stories. They don't have time to hear you saying your child didn't get this, your child didn't earn that, and when your child is going through the milestones, like the woman was saying today, it's hard. It's hard to hear that your child is doing this, your child is doing that, and my child isn't. So by providing a safe and trusted network of individuals, parents is like, you know what? I can't believe this exists. I'm not alone. I can speak to people. I can connect. I can laugh. I can cry. And I don't have to feel guilty about what I'm thinking, what I'm feeling, my own emotional self-care, my own physical self-care, my mental self-care. It's safe to cry here. It's safe to say, you know what? I didn't want this life and I'm not judged.
Right. Right. I think that's so important. So important. And so as we're recording this today, and when this episode will launch is in March in honor of Developmental Disabilities Awareness Month. Can you speak a little bit to why person-centered care is so important with developing that goal-oriented plan for a child and a parent to work through together? And what approach you use to kind of empower individuals to live the life that they ultimately want?
I think, when we talk about self-care, which is so important, because even in raising a child with disability, preparing the goals of being goal-oriented, you as a parent have to understand who you are. Because if you don't understand in your own emotional self-care, mental ability, what are you portraying? I keep telling parents, no matter what it is, you are still your child's role model. How you prepare yourself in this situation can totally affect how you present your child, whether to the community, whether to the family. I have had so many families who have not even tell their families that they have a child with disability. So when we come together as a group, as a community, is how do we respect each other? And even if a person doesn't want to share, are you on that person's case, like, oh, you should, you must do it. No, I don't push you to do what you don't have to do. It's going to be when you're ready. And even in the own advocacy of teaching a parent to be ready, is still having boundaries and still knowing that when they feel ready to speak, there's an open door.
Right.
There are people there who's willing to listen and actually listen. We always invite parents in, come and have a cup of tea or a cup of coffee and just have that talk. That dialogue is so important. So for every parent out there, don't feel alone. You are your child's best advocate, but you got to advocate for you when you need to take that break, because you show up no matter what. Whether you're tired, you show up. Whether you have an IEP meeting, whether you have a life plan meeting, you're showing up. And that's what you need to do as you're preparing these goals. You got to show up no matter how tired you are. But giving yourself, whether it's a meditation you do, yoga or something, the mindfulness.
That's for you.
Yes, it's for you, because you are the one, no matter what, because you're going to be standing for your child every single time.
And I do want to talk a little bit about, because we hear from families a lot, one of the fears, associated with having a child with disabilities is sometime I won't be there as the parent. There will be, we've been talking a lot about how important this advocacy is. And we agree it's incredibly important. How do you prepare families for that eventuality that I won't be there someday to take care of my child and I need to trust others?
And that's one of the discussions we always have. We do a lot of focus groups. I said, listen, we're going to have like a sip and chat or like an eat and chat or something.
Food's got to be part of it.
Because you know what? People is always relaxed when it comes to food or even having a conversation. So I'll send out emails. I'll tell my assistant, we're going to have a conversation, just free talk.
Okay.
Just sip and chat. And then I'll just say, you know what, guys, I wish I can live to be like 105 and I don't have to worry about my kids. But guess what? We got to go sometimes.
Yeah.
How are you preparing? So one of the things we have resources, I have people come in, different lawyers, different, topics to be discussed about, preparing a proxy, having a will, knowing about a trust, because with our families, some they think, oh, I can't put anything because Medicaid can take away my money and stuff. But you have to learn to plan and prepare to putting things aside. So we have individuals who come in as lawyers or other families who say, no, I'm going through this right now. And I'm going to tell you my lesson this is what I have learned. Because I did not prepare, this is what has happened. And it even begins from the beginning of when you go through OPWGD, which is the Office of People with Developmental Disabilities. One of the things I tell the parents when they walk in, when you went into OPWGD to get your eligibility, and there's a list of checklists. You want respite, you want come help, you want all these wonderful things. And one of the last boxes I think they had back then, 2007, when I started my program, was a checkbox like, if something happens to me, are you allowing OPWD or the state to make sure your child is placed in an appropriate facility? And a lot of parents do not check that box because they think they're going to live very, very long, and sometimes they may outlive their children, and that doesn't really happen. It's a process. We have life and death. And as they're preparing, it's a scary topic because I remember, I was doing a workshop and this guy called me and said, "Oh, Miss Clarke, I need to talk to you about my child." The child was 65. A young adult. Parent never send the child out to whether it's camp or whatever. And now she's realizing she's so much older and I can't do anything. So getting prepared. Even I tell parents, just make sure you take your kids out. They socialize with others. I know sometimes they said, their behavior. I believe any behavior can be modified. Is how it is introduced, the stimulus, how you interact, the connection, the conversations. But that no one wants. It's not a sexy topic. It's not a topic to say, I want to talk about this because it make me feel so good. It's sad. It's daunting. It's like, oh my gosh, I'm not going to be here. But we have those conversations by having the workshops, having lawyers come and talk about your will, a proxy, medical proxies, understanding the importance of you leaving, instruction, because Johnny may love to go to the movies. And then this other person that you leave Johnny in care, never look at that plan.
Right.
I always call the love letters. I tell parents, you need to write love letters of what your children love to do. Because even a love letter, whether you're there or not, might be a babysitting, and they come in and you got something happen, you can't come home. The love letter will say, well, at 6 o'clock, he loves to go and take his bath. Or at 7 o'clock, this is his favorite meal. Prepare that with him. So I think it's not a very sexy topic as you talk about, in knowing that I have to leave this earth and all of us are going to leave somehow or the other. But what am I doing? How am I having this conversation and this discussion? So we try and bring it up all the time. What are you planning? What are you doing? Look at the future. What have you set? And that love letter. And if you have to update the love letter every year, do that, because we change. We have different likes, and no kids with special needs. This week they may like the chicken, next week they like the turkey, or they love something else. So you don't know. So being prepared in that aspect, and it's not as painful as the thought of you not being there, is great preparation. Do the love letter. Because when you think of the love letter, you think about the amazing things, that my child loves so much, that when I'm not there, I know, it's happening. And you have to think positive.
Okay, well, I'm going to put you on the spot with one last question.
Okay.
That's the big one. If you had one piece of advice to a parent who, has just received a diagnosis for a child and is managing that process, what would it be? I know it's probably hard to take one.
No. Value. You know what? Sometimes we don't value who we are and don't value the strength that we have within ourselves. And value that when you get this diagnosis, it's okay. This is the same child you're going to love. Value that you're going to show up no matter what, whether you like it or not, through a meeting, to a life plan. Value that you are the person that was created to give birth to this special being. Value their gift. They are a gift to you. And most important, value yourself. Because if you don't value and love yourself enough, you can never fight. You can never be that best advocate for your child. Value. It's so important. We tend to not value one another, but when we lose value within ourselves, that is the worst. You have to get back into yourself, because it's all about you. How am I being strong enough mentally, emotionally, physically? Because sometimes our kids can be a lot to handle, but value who you are. You were created especially to be that child's gift in every aspect of your life. Value you.
Well, Dr. Clarke, thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate your background, your inspiration, and everything that you shared with us. So thank you so much.
Oh, you're more than welcome, and I would love to do it again sometime.
You can come back anytime, as long as you bring food.
I will.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, well, welcome, Crystal. Thanks so much for joining us. Can you start off our conversation with just giving a little background on your professional history and your role with the Justice Center?
Sure. Thank you for having me. My name is Crystal Collins, and I have been working in the field for about 35 years, working on behalf of individuals with disabilities in a variety of programs, really providing advocacy, supporting individuals and their families, primarily prior to coming to the Justice Center, working with individuals who were seeking employment. So I did a lot of employment services, but also managed a program for people who were in recovery. So really supporting them as they went through the recovery. And then I came to the Justice Center about 11 years ago. It's hard for me to believe that it's been 11 years, but I had always wanted to work in state government. And I applied for the position, and I started out working in outreach here at the Justice Center. So I would answer, people would call in and have questions that weren't necessarily related to an abuse and neglect investigation, but their disability impacted them in some way, and they needed assistance with navigating the system. So I would provide information and referral. And then about 10 years ago, I started in the individual and family support unit, where I was providing support and information, guiding individuals through the investigative process. I was a coordinator here in this Region 1, so all of the Capital District and way up north. And then I also supervise the Ombudsman program. And now I solely function as the Ombudsman Supervisor, and I'm currently functioning as the Ombudsman as well.
Great. And that brings me to my next question. What is an ombudsman for those who don't know?
So an ombudsman is someone who advocates for the rights and well-being of people who are receiving services. Our ombudsman program really provides ombudsman services at 2 developmental centers that are left in the state, Sunmount and Valley Ridge, and soon we are going to be providing ombudsman services in the Finger Lakes.
Okay.
And, you know, the ombudsman really helps individuals and families understand their rights, navigate services, and we assist them with resolving concerns, and everything that we do is utilizing a trauma-informed approach. And a lot of times people just come to me with questions, individuals' questions about maybe their treatment, questions about maybe when they're going to be leaving Sunmount or Valley Ridge, and we're really there to provide information and resources. You know, a lot of times when someone comes to us, sometimes, you know, they're looking for us to help them resolve a complaint, and we do whatever we can to help resolve that complaint. Sometimes just based on their treatment and things like that, we may not be able to resolve it, but the important thing is that we're providing them with information, and we're ensuring that their rights aren't being violated. And once they have all the information, they can make better decisions and have informed choices.
And just so we're aware, you know, when we think about the Justice Center, we think about investigations with, you know, abuse, neglect allegations. So when you're talking about when someone comes to you with a complaint or is something that they want to have a resolution to, that can be about anything, correct?
Yes, it's usually, you know, it's usually questions or complaints or concerns related to their treatment.
Okay.
Sometimes it can be something as simple as better meal choices or things like that. It can be, you know, discussing a community referral, which means they're ready to leave Sun Mountain or Valley Ridge, and they need to be connected to the supports in the community, be screened for a group home or things like that, or sometimes they're returning home. So it's things like that that we get involved with. If anybody comes to the Ombudsman with regard to something that sounds like abuse or neglect, we also help them navigate making a report.
Sure.
And then our IFSU advocates would assist the individual through that process.
Okay. And what would you say that people in care and their families, what do you think that they see the most value in an ombudsman serving in an advocacy role?
So I really think people see the ombudsman as an advantage just so that they feel like their voices are being heard. Not that the staff at these facilities don't, allow them to ask questions or voice their concerns, but I think sometimes because the ombudsman is independent of the actual facilities, we don't work for OPWDD, it can bring in just another level of support, and people feel heard. And when people feel heard and valued, a lot of times they become more engaged in their treatment and the programs there. So I think that really adds a lot of value. And just also having the opportunity for someone to hear them out and then advocate on their behalf. But I also provide a lot of support in trying to foster self-advocacy. That's a large part of what we're doing at Sun Mountain Valley Ridge. So really helping individuals speak for themselves when they can, and helping them, learn that process.
And can you just give a brief definition of what self-advocacy means, just for our listeners so that they understand?
Yeah, so when we talk about self-advocacy, we're really talking about individuals being able to voice concerns, being able to, bring forward an issue maybe with their treatment or their quality of care, and really advocating for themselves, bringing that forward. And sometimes they may need support to help navigate that, but they're really bringing forward things that are important to them themselves. And then staff and the ombudsman provide as much support as someone needs.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that's really important and speaks to the rights of the individual that we're working with at the time. What would you say is the most important thing that at baseline every person in care should be entitled to, aside from just their ability to live their life as completely as possible? What would you say is something that is very important in your line of work?
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone receiving services really has the right to a dignity, respect, the right to feel safe, and really, I think most importantly, the right to be involved in decisions about their own life and their own care. They have the right to information so that they can make informed choices. And they really do have the right to be able to voice and ask questions about their care and have a say in their care. So I think that that's probably one of, when we talk about rights and things like that, that's probably the most important.
Yeah, I mean, having a say in your own care and the provision of that care is important.
Right. And sometimes even if you might not agree with maybe treatment that's put forward, at least being able to ask the questions and have someone explain, why things are the way that they are. Another thing really, a lot of times when people come to the ombudsman, we're really, talking, I'm listening to what they're asking, I'm hearing their perspective, asking a lot of questions to get all of the information. And then really, sometimes it involves really kind of looking at the pros and cons of a decision. If someone, I'll give an example, if someone wants to, leave Sun Mountain Valley Ridge and it's deemed that they can have a community referral to live in the community. We're really a lot of times outlining the pros and cons to the kind of housing that they might want, where they may want to live, all of those kinds of things. And then that allows for people to ask questions, but also be involved in their care and really make an informed choice.
All right, and I know you wanted to talk a little bit today about the self-advocacy committee at Sunmount and Valley Ridge. So would you like to discuss that?
Yeah, this is something that I'm really passionate about, and the Ombudsman, along with OPWDD, the Office for People with Developmental Disabilities, really supports self-advocacy. So we started a self-advocacy committee that happens at Sunmount as well as Valley Ridge, and there are actually elected representatives who are there to meet with their peers in their units or their houses, and they identify things that are going really well at Valley Ridge and Sunmount, and they also identify, issues that of concern that they may have. Really about anything.
Right.
And one of the things that we've really tried to foster is for them to also come up with a way to resolve some of the issues that they bring forward. And so they meet monthly, regularly, and then we have a quarterly self-advocacy committee that the Ombudsman facilitates. And at that quarterly meeting, there's an agenda that's sent out ahead of time, and the self-advocates bring agenda items that they've identified with their peers, and they bring it to the quarterly meeting, and we discuss things that are going very well, but we also discuss issues or areas of concerns or questions that they have. Oftentimes, prior to the quarterly meeting, individuals with the support of their staff have already resolved some of the questions or concerns that they might have had. And what they do at the self-advocacy committee is they share how the identified issue and then how they resolved it. And what that really does is it allows for an opportunity for a teaching moment to teach some of the other self-advocates and peers, how someone went about resolving a concern. Also, sometimes in their individual meetings that they have, they may not have been able to resolve an issue, so that issue gets discussed at the quarterly self-advocacy committee meeting, and there are staff, in leadership from OPWDD and central office at these self-advocacy meetings, and oftentimes we will provide information right at the quarterly meeting that helps the individuals understand, and give information about that issue that they identified. And I can give you an example. So there was something with regard to having more options for meals. While that might be something that sounds, small,
Right.
It does impact, individuals' daily life. And what we were able to do was have the dietitian take information from the self-advocates. They also provided information about what they are able to provide in terms of, more access to different kinds of meals. And we were able to kind of resolve that in that meeting. There are some larger issues that come up as well, things like environmental things that may come up. And that requires, that may require a few meetings of discussion. But what we've been able to do is even bring in like the superintendent of maintenance to talk to the individuals about, what are the steps that are happening, or maybe why something can't be resolved right away. And it just provides for information so that everybody understands things more. And I just think the self-advocacy committee is so important because, again, it gives a voice to individuals and they feel heard. And it also really teaches those skills that you're going to need, when you're living more independently out in the community.
Yeah. So important and so on theme with the advocacy topic we're talking about today. Thank you so much. I will, just wanted to ask you if after hearing our conversation today, someone thinks this Ombudsman services could be helpful to them, how would they reach out and contact you?
Yeah, so if you are looking to receive ombudsman services, and I just want to be clear that our program is only for Sun Mountain Valley Ridge, but if you're looking for ombudsman services, you can reach out by phone, and the number is 315-570-2032. We also have an email that's dedicated just to the Ombudsman program, and that is jc.sm.ombudsman@justicecenterny.gov.
Great. And we, of course, will link all of those up on the screen and in the text of the podcast episode. So thank you so much. But thank you for joining us today. I think it's really very important, the work that you do, especially advocating for people who are in care, and we appreciate what you do.
Thank you.